Hi, everybody. This is Loren Baker of Search Engine Journal. Welcome to a special episode of the Search Engine Journal Show. With me today, I have the CEO and co founder of Neeva, Sridhar Ramaswamy. And we're going to be discussing basically AI all around ChatGPT, which everyone's been talking about, it seems, for the past month, and how that affects search. So, welcome back to the SEJ Show, Sridhar.
Super excited to be back, Lauren. Thanks for having me. Exciting times for search.
Absolutely. So it seemed that right before holiday break, ChatGPT or OpenAI just totally rolled out ChatGPT, and everyone, not just folks in search, but also uh, tech folks, coders, family, this and that, are talking about it, asking about it, right? And it seems like for the one time. We've seen AI things roll out before, like Jasper or art-oriented AI, and this one really seems to has resonated to the point where I even saw a statistic the other day that there was more queries and questions being entered into OpenAI's Chat GPT than Bing over the past few weeks. So I'll have to find the source for that. I don't,
That sounds
but
wow. That sounds hard.
yeah, which may make the Microsoft investment make a much more sense. But Neeva, um, your search engine, has had an AI component to it, and then you've expanded upon that. So before we get started talking about ChatGPT AI and its role in search, how about if you give our audience a quick background of yourself, Neeva, um, privacy, and how AI is incorporated into that?
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Lauren. Um, yeah, my co-founder Vivek and I worked at Google on ads on things like travel, shopping, search for a pretty long time, more than a decade. We left to start Neeva for two reasons. One, we felt that commercial search engines, Google, Bing, had become products for advertisers, not really products for you and me to find out what we want. And we felt that a user focused search engine would be able to differentiate itself and deliver a better product experience. Now, search engines are hard to build because they're systems that run at massive scale with lots and lots of technical problems. So you spent the better part of 2, 3 years just building up the infrastructure needed to power search more and more ourselves. So Neeva at its core is a user-first search engine. That means that we don't show ads, we don't show affiliate links, we protect your privacy. We have a freemium model where a subset of Neeva users become premium users, get access to a full-featured product, get additional benefits like a VPN and a password manager. But the core principle is that search is really, really important for all of us. We use it every day without thinking. And how do we go about creating a better product experience? Great thesis, but part of the difficulty for us has been penetrating public consciousness. As you know, there's a large gap between what people will say they're going to do for exercise or privacy and what they actually do. And so we realized pretty early on that getting people to try Neeva as their search engine was the biggest obstacle, to growing a real business. Because once people use Neeva, they actually converted over to premium members at pretty solid percentages. Um, and we've been working on, AI related things for the better part of 9+ months, basically as GPT-3 started rolling out. I like to think of AI as almost like X-ray vision for the internet, as far as the search engine goes. It lets us peer deeply into pages. It lets us understand what is it that you mean when you type in a query or a question into a search engine. And what NeevaAI does is it summarizes what you need to know about whatever your query is. I was telling Lauren, I just typed in Google layoffs into the Neeva search box and got a NeevaAI answer card that gave an up-to-date, this information is only a few hours old, synopsis of what was going on about Google layoffs. it is that power. It's that power to sort of synthesize, crystallize what's on the web, but in a way that gives the sources very clearly, in a way that is real time. This is what makes us stand out in how search engines are working. But yeah, Neeva's mission is we want to return search back to its users and make search fun again, as opposed to it being a product for advertisers.
Excellent, excellent. So we have a lot of comments in the live chat right now, and just to let our audience know, if you're watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, et cetera, you can enter a question or make a comment. Highly encourage everyone to do so. And then also in real time, we'll be looking into these. And if you're listening, then it's not live. So we put out the audio a week after the video show most of the time. So a lot of the comments are about the inaccuracy of the answers to queries in ChatGPT.
That's right.
We were talking about this a little bit before the show. ChatGPT has a hard time figuring out things like facts around. In my case, I was trying to utilize it to build person schema to implement on a website, and it was bringing in false information about my educational background. So, what are some of the limitations that you see right now with ChatGPT serving inaccurate results, and why do you feel that's happening?
The underlying technology behind ChatGPT is this model called, like, it's just called GPT 3.5. But the core technique that is used by that model is that it is learning on every page, every piece of text that it can get its hands on. Now, note, they don't know where these pages came from. They don't know whether it is real or not. They don't understand things like link structure, authority. Is the New York Times more believable than some person's blog? It all looks the same. But what these language models have is an incredible fluency around language. But when it comes to things like their belief system, it's kind of everything that is out there. This means that if you ask it a creative question, if you ask it to write, I've asked it to write short stories. It's actually super funny. You can set the context, and you can get a really nice short story. You can get it to write jokes. You can get it to write sonnets. So in those kinds of functions, it is amazing. You can even get it to write pieces of code, but sometimes they have like subtle bugs that can be very difficult to track down. It is very, very fluent. But because it is not grounded in the authority of the web, it has trouble often. And I was telling Loren earlier that he can also make it spout nonsense simply by feeding it a bunch of information. You can say like, Sridhar is a cardiologist. He grew up in Brazil, blah, blah, blah. And then when you ask it a question, it will basically take that context and give it back to you. So this lack of authority is a really big issue. Also, these models are humongous. They take an enormous amount of money to train, an enormous amount of money to run, and they're not real time. So what we did at Neeva is we use a technique that's called retrieval augmented generation. That's just a fancy way of saying use the power of search to set the reality field for a large language model, and then ask it to generate text and cite which part of the input text it is using. So we run our search stack, get the best results for a query, and then ask our large language model to then write an answer using these pages as the frame of reference. This means that we are able to cite every line that we say. It also means that we are able to get feed it real-time information. So you're going to see more and more people do things like that. But what this means from a search experience is that, for 40-50% of queries, and we are hoping it'll be 70-80% soon, we are able to give very fluent answers to questions. Don't get me wrong, we get a few things wrong. If there are two people with the same name, then we'll mix up stuff. Team is working on a fix for that. That should roll out next week. We want it to be better with real time and date. Sometimes, for example, we will use a word like yesterday, without understanding that the news article is talking about the day prior to when it was published. So subtle things like that we need to fix. But I think this style of cited, sourced, real-time AI is the thing that is going to be incredibly useful from a search context.
And then also from an SEO perspective, which the bulk of our audience is, one fear, well, not fear, but is that if Google rolls out an AI search component similar to what we're seeing at ChatGPT, you know, year after year after year, update after update after update, there's more effort by Google to keep the user within the walled garden of Google and not click away, to click to Google properties, to click to ads, to you know, integrate and utilize things like people also ask, drop down, things like that, right? And sometimes, especially with factual information or data-driven information, like someone's height, a celebrity's height or whatever, there may not be a source because it's public information. One thing that I do see when looking at Neeva, and the thing that got my attention, especially when you launched the announcement on the 5th, was the sourcing. So would you mind, Sridhar, would you mind sharing your screen and going through some search examples for the audience that's viewing right now to see how this works?
Let's try it. I've not shared often with StreamYard. Hopefully I will mess it up.
No problem.
Let's see. Okay. Well, I had just put in your name to get a little blurb.
Great.
Let me make it bigger. Sorry. So the things that stand out here are hopefully we got everything right here. But for every sentence, we cite where it is coming from. Obviously, a little bit of JavaScript highlighting, and if you look for people names are common. So if you look for my name, this also has my personal data, but this is a this is a summary. Again, notice that each and every one of the sentences here is cited, so you can go back and you can go back and look at it. So typical answer-seeking queries, we do a pretty good job of answering, whether it is people, whether it is questions. Friends have sent me subtle things like, I think this hopefully, can a nonprofit go public? Not a trivial question. We had an answer for this, but we try to make sure that we trigger only when we are confident. In this case, we are actually not confident, so we did not trigger for this particular query. So we are working on increasing the amount of triggering, but as I said, we like to always operate in a context of we need to back up what we are able to say. One of the really cool things about the way we have integrated, a search engine very tightly into like the AI product is that we can do this stuff real time. This came out only a few hours ago, and we are able to show you an AI summary of it. This also indicates places that we need to work on. We need to have a better understanding of time in the different articles. Clearly, this is older news and should not be included up here. So these are some of the things that we are working on. So there's a disambiguation UI that's going to come soon. So for example, if you say something like the CDA, it actually means different things. We will say like, hey, there are a few different meanings. Did you mean one of these? So that we can show cards differently. Team is also thinking about what can we do for specific verticals, like a product vertical. Can we do something differently over there? And then Neeva also has a number of features that can change how you look at the result set. So, for example, in this case, we offered like this little verified button. This you're seeing an answer being generated in real time. We offer a verified button which limits the sites that come back to basically like nonprofits and universities for health queries. Right now, this summary is not recomputed when you click on this button, but we want to be able to do that. Other things like preferred provider for news, how do they interact with this unit? So this is very early, we're just getting started. But the idea really is that pretty much for any query that you type in, you should get like a fluid answer. And by the way, early data is also that this is not like taking away clicks. People look at this and go like, okay, I want to go to this site and actually go read a little bit more. And so you will see AI operate in sort of like this assistant-like way where it guides you around. It's not that hard for us to think of a situation in which you can get additional information, additional context about a page if there is an extension installed. So I think it just opens up lots and lots of possibilities about what we can do.
And when the user clicks on the citation, do you
Yeah,
take them directly to the site?
yeah,
Okay, good. That's good to see. So,
yeah, yeah.
and this is going to be speculation driven, but one of the main um, points of concern that I've had with some peers while discussing AI, real time answers, whatever it may be, with Google, and given your background running Google Ads, is that this could be a direct um, negative on the traditional Google search driven monetization model,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
Because it's typically 8 to 10 organic listings with ads on the top, ads on the bottom, and recently I've been seeing ads integrated into the organic results as well. So I guess my speculative question is, if Google does make a change and serve something similar to what you're already doing at Neeva, and then we see that Bing is expected to roll this out in
That's right.
March. At Neeva, you said, was it 40% of queries are now serving
Yeah,
Neeva?
it's 40% of queries serve these, and we are racing around the clock to increase that to like 60, 70%.
Right. And you're not an ad supported search
We're
tool.
not ad
So
supported search. And so we can swing for the fences. That's part of
yeah,
the advantage of a startup. It's all about utility.
exactly. So where do you feel, given your experience at Google, um, what do you feel the challenges are from a monetization perspective for ad supported search engines rolling this out? And what kind of business models would you think would be built around that are not subscription based like Neeva is?
I can imagine this going in a number of different ways. I think we're just scratching the surface with the UX that we are showing here. Um, we've been working on an app experience um, to to create a very browsy kind of search that also has these summaries, but done differently. So I think you're going to see a lot of innovation in how search works. I think this is part of what is going to be induced by the changes in AI, but also by the fact that startups are going to come in and try different approaches. And so one of the things that we are that we are working on is a mobile experience that is a lot more visual. It uses AI in the same way, but it just does it very differently. So I'll go to a quick present again.
Absolutely.
So this is a mobile search experience, and it's in beta right now. There are a set of folks that are trying it, but we basically said if we were to do something like Instagram stories, or what would the search experience be? So the search query is down here. I sort of put this in, and what you get are a series of cards that you can flip through. It has a short summary generated by AI. You can go to the page down here. There's a browser that is built into the application. But as you can imagine, this is a very, very different experience than the 10 blue link search. And again, this works for this works for anything. I was checking out this thing called like a 12-3-30 workout, but we are able to create a very different search experience. And obviously, this one, I'm not saying we are going to do it, but something like this is more amenable to ads-driven monetization. So I think you're going to see just a lot of innovation happen. Like interval training is another one of my like favorite queries to show off here. It's a similar idea. We are running a search stack. We're then using AI to summarize content that's on the page. We're also going to integrate the exactly one style answer over here. But this gives you another idea of like where search can go. It can be a lot more visual. It can be a lot more fun. So I think there's just lots of change coming to how search is going to work. I demoed that on my MacBook, but it's actually an iOS app, and MacBooks, I learned recently, amazingly, can just run native iOS apps like right out of the box. The
Yes.
M2s can do this, but it's an app experience, and as you can imagine, especially for the younger Gen Zs have taken to this like fish to water. They just sort of tap, 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 go like, oh, this is amazing. It's actually making learning about stuff fun again.
Yeah, exactly. And when you brought that up, it really got me thinking into the news around, I guess, Gen Z or younger generations looking for finding information via different apps that are different than Google, right?
Yep,
Finding information via whether it's TikTok,
that's
Instagram,
right.
even Reddit, and basically breaking away from the status quo of always
Right.
searching on Google to find written content. Google's done a better job of integrating video and image or whatever it may be, but at the end of the day, it's more of a very written content driven search engine.
That's right.
Um,
That's right.
I do have a question about your sourcing. So, so for the health queries, right? Those are verified sources. The concept of EAT, expertise, authoritativeness, trustworthiness, has been a big component with SEOs, and making sure that they're building trustworthy sites and information coming from experts in the different fields, and then making sure that's all marked up accordingly and everything else. So Google and other engines know that whoever is writing the content or whoever is reviewing
Yep.
the content is an expert in that field. When you're serving verified sources or other sources, are you doing that on the page level, or are you looking at any of the author information when serving those sources?
We aren't yet looking at author information. When it comes to places like Reddit, we look at things like, what are the upvotes, what are the karma points for a particular user. So we work closely with Reddit and use some of those signals, but we don't do this on sort of like all. We don't do this at a page level. Certainly, we don't do this at a person level. Our team is like a little over 50 people. And so, that's not an area that we have delved into. And things like the verified have so far been done, using payer feedback, but more at a site level.
Got you. That makes sense. Another question I have is, Neeva is a very personalized search experience given your model, right? It's a subscription based, it's private, there's
That's
no
right. That's
ads,
right.
and you can set the personalization factors based upon how you want to interact with the search engine.
That's
How
right.
personalized are the AI driven answers based upon history, setup, things like that? If I'm asking a question about Google layoffs and then someone else is asking a question about Google layoffs, are we getting the same exact response? Or is that response
Uh,
personalized based upon the individual and their settings?
right now, you're getting the same response. We are, as I said, working on taking things like preferred providers into account when we write those summaries. So you can get a summary based on the news sources that you trust. That's on our roadmap. It should be coming soon.
Got you. Very cool. And are you typically seeing that Neva AI is generating more queries by interaction? Like, for example, people have been interacting with chatbots now for almost a decade. It's a very normalized thing. Are you seeing that there's more interaction and more follow up queries being answered after that initial AI, after the AI results are given, as opposed to the traditional search rankings?
This is, you will see a bunch of changes roll out on this side. We are making it much easier to do follow-ups, like both in the app experience that I showed you,
Yeah.
but also in the follow-on searches. Rather than just show you another, like, search, we might show you a snippet of like the AI answer for that search. Um, it's sort of too early, to be honest, to call out, is this leading to longer session, more queries, because it's pretty early. But we do see this experience as uh, just driving a lot more usage. I don't know about you, maybe it's like, the Wikipedia geek in me, but I'll often start on one topic, go to a Wikipedia page and be like, ooh, that is interesting. It's a little bit of a rabbit hole of just like finding out fun
Definitely.
stuff that you didn't know before. We see these very much as facilitating that, because also they're coming in bite-sized chunks that you can read and then decide like, I like this other topic. So we very much expect query session lengths to increase. And in fact, on the app especially, that early feedback has been, oh, the follow-up stories are so cool, I can get lost in this, and it's so much fun to just dive and whiz through a bunch of information. So I see this as making just the process of search and discovery much easier. Obviously, people have also asked for things like, hey, I want to save that card and save this other card, and I want to have a set of cards that summarize the research that I have done for a particular topic. So things like that are also coming soon. I think honestly, what all of this is going to do is it's just going to make our information consumption just a lot more fluid than what it's sort of become. Because so many people, including sadly me at Google, so many companies have focused so much on like grabbing attention and trapping you in like a little bubble. So I think this will just make this kind of just finding out about things a lot more fluid and a lot more fun.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Um, this is whenever AI comes up, I always hear Terminator jokes, right? Dying core, whatever it may be, things like that.
Yep, yep.
Um, where do you see this heading in terms of there's been there's a lot of talk around search privacy, which is something that Neeva specializes in. Where do you see this heading in terms of regulation around the ability to have these kinds of intimate conversations about health, about science, about issues that someone may have with a an AI bot style scenario? Do you see this something that the user's information is definitely protected? Do you see this something that is going to generate more regulation around the sharing of information, especially in more of a communication chat style environment,
Yep.
as opposed to just searching for keyword queries? Where do you see that heading?
This is a great question. I'll sort of break it up into a few parts. Let me talk about the positive of what I think this technology can do and why I think that applying to search is just like part one. Um, I said earlier that these language models basically have unbelievable, like just fluidity and dexterity when it comes to both understanding language, stuff that you say and type, but also creating output. And you're seeing this in like the output that we create and the output that ChatGPT creates. Not a bunch of links. It's like it's a held together little story about something. But to me, that is the tip of the iceberg. So what large language models really are going to become almost our interpreters for the online world. You tell it stuff, it sort of knows your context in a way that search engines never were, in a way that any of the tools that we have used Most people that use like software complain about how brittle it is, because you have to give input in exactly this way. And God help you if you put like an extra space after or a dot after a zip code if you're entering an address. It just like doesn't work, right? So I think you will see input getting a lot more fluid and responses getting more fluid. But to me, the real power is going to come when these language models know how to interact with a search engine, as we are showing. All of a sudden, that product got a lot more useful. But you can imagine them driving a browser. Already, there are examples built of like little systems in which you can type in something, and if you type in a mathematical expression, they'll just fire up a little Python interpreter, run a little piece of code, and give you that result. But there's no reason why it has to stop there. You can hook it up to other kinds of APIs. You can hook it up to a browser. There's a company called Adept that's working on integrating language models and browsers so that you can say like, hey, it's not that far away, where you're able to say something along the lines of, oh, I'm thinking of taking a trip in a month somewhere in Western Europe, and my budget is so and so. What should I do? And is going to come back with like a set of suggestions that's based on actually running a browser, just like you, scraping that information and making it intelligible to you. Again, I always joke about how all of us have to look on Kayak or something, but separately on Southwest, because as you know, Southwest doesn't give its information to anyone else. I see like a new bot that is able to do that kind of task as well. So to me, that's the real power, which is language models are now almost like the place, the concierge, so to say, that will take things that you want and translate it into a set of actions and bring back output. So I think, and there's a part of you and all of your listeners that are going to go like, wait, this is deja vu all over again. Weren't we promised this when Google Home came about? Or Alexa, and we didn't do squat with it. Like we asked it to play music or what the time is. I do think that those tools simply did not have the flexibility and fluidity of these models. So I just think that just information and action discovery is going to get a lot better. And I think all of us are also going to be cheering the day when we can renew our driver's license with the DMV site without like dealing with the little arcana that they always seem to have. I think that's like the positive part of how these things can work. Now, the negative sides. These models do not have per person context. There is no place in which they're saying, oh, similar to like wipeout or takeout, this is exactly what Sridhar did with the model, and I can just erase it. All of us, okay, willingly or not, are participating in a giant experiment where, similar to Google, we are happily submitting all of our thoughts, all of our worries, all of our desires into ChatGPT right now. And worse, it is not equipped to even compartmentalize information like a Google reasonably can. At the end of the day, Google's like, okay, this is your account, these are your searches, you want to delete it, just tell me, we'll delete it. They make it hard for you to do it, but it is possible. So I absolutely think that there needs to be oversight over how this stuff is done, what storing like personal information is going to mean, and especially if the data is then going to be used for training future models. That's when life really gets very scary. And these models are very, very expensive to clone. I don't think anyone has figured out how to have copies of the model separately for you and me, because they're just very expensive. So I think there's a lot of issues that have to be worked out. Similar to, I don't know, I found the 23andMe experience to be unpleasant, because initially it's like, oh, learn about your genetics. And then you realize you had silently, like accepted some condition that said that like your DNA information could be used in pretty much any way that the company wanted. So I think we are going through a similar experiment with ChatGPT, where you're like willingly surrendering all our details. I do think that there needs to be, I don't know that regulation is the way, but there definitely needs to be thought put into what does it mean to give private information to something like ChatGPT. The way we operate these things, we are thinking about a chat-like interface for personal search. You folks briefly saw like email results come up when I searched. I would like that to be summarized as well. But we are going to do it in such a way that we don't use that training data. I mean, we don't use that data or put it back into our models. The context setting is done on the fly, and the machine learning models are not going to keep anything about that context once we are done showing you the summary. So if I were to type like Loren Baker into my Neeva account, it should say, hey, these are the 4 times that you have talked to Loren. These are your emails. But that summary is within the context of that particular query and is not fed back into the language model that we have for how we go about summarizing things.
Excellent, excellent. Sridhar, I really want to thank you for jumping on today's SEJ show, especially at 8 a.m. on a Friday morning. This is great, very timely, and you're the first person I thought of when started hearing the news about everything rolling out, ChatGPT possibility. Well, not the possibility, but Bing. But then also when I saw the Neeva announcement, I was like, hey, this is perfect, and this is exactly Neeva's example of Neeva AI. Basically, when I was using it, seemed like it fixed most of the issues that I was experiencing with ChatGPT, and especially the lack of sourcing, the lack of accurate information. And I did have a couple of questions. We've had a couple of questions that came through about Neeva during the show today, and the first one is Neeva available in multiple languages or only English search?
NeevaAI right now is only in English. First week of Feb for rolling it out in the UK, France, Germany, Spain. We should be able to roll it out like early first or second week of Feb. But NeevaAI itself, works exceptionally well in English. You just need to sign up for an account by going to neeva.com. It's a free account. And as I said, it triggers on like some 40-50% of queries. So it's pretty fun to use.
And the second question was, is Neeva offering anything similar to Google Search Console with the ability for website owners to verify with Neeva in the backend and see things like traffic or queries and things like that where their site is found?
It's in the works, focused on growth first.
Yes. And you said you're at 40% right now of queries are utilizing Neeva AI. When do you expect that number to hit 60%?
Probably end of Feb. This is something that we are continuously working on. We are also trying to balance things like people disambiguation, which is really important. Much better freshness. We really tried very hard to make sure that Neeva AI did not hallucinate. So we worked hard to make sure that you just like didn't answer questions that were like unanswerable. So we want to keep that like hallucination rate pretty low. We would rather be safe than give you a confident and wrong answer. So you're definitely going to see more and more triggering, but we think it is really important that we keep like the trust level really high.
That's fantastic and great to hear. Again, thank you again for jumping on the show today. We're a little bit over the 30-minute mark, but it was a great conversation. Learned a lot, and especially with expectations of utilizing AI and tools like ChatGPT and its functionality in the future search. And the fact that you're already doing it, Neeva, makes it a lot better. So thanks again, Sridhar, for jumping on. For all of you, just to let you know, we'll be doing a recap of today's show on SEJ and dropping the audio next week. So be sure to subscribe, like, and do everything else. Get notified in your social channel that you're currently watching this on for the next SEJ show. So thanks again, Sridhar, and thanks to everyone. Have a great Friday and a great weekend.
Thanks, Loren.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Search Engine Journal Show. If you liked this episode, subscribe to our channel for so much more and click the notification